All right, so first thing we're going to do, we're going to start with our standard dynamic warm-up because we want the blood flowing. We want to get nice and warm before we get into any kind of stretching. So years ago, people used to do static stretching first. Terrible idea. It's a good way to injure yourself because you're trying to stretch cold muscles, which is kind of like a tight rope, and you're trying to stretch it. It's just a good chance for injury if you do that. So we're going to warm up first, get the blood flowing, get those muscles nice and supple, nice and warm before we start stretching them out. So first thing you're going to do, feet shoulder width apart, and really pay attention to your form. Sit back on those heels, squat down nice and deep, and your first few may not be all that deep, but as you keep going, try to get deeper and deeper. And with this, I want you to focus on where your weight is in your heels, as well as where your knees are. So you're sitting back in your heels, but you want those knees to track over your feet. You don't want those the knees to collapse in, and you don't need to push them way out to the side. So they should stay right over top of the feet, bottom of your squat. Your toes are still on the ground, but you should be able to wiggle them because most of the weight's back in your heels. And then as you're going, you're getting deeper and deeper. Okay, next one. Step out nice and wide, and you're going to shift your weight side to side. But I don't want you to lean forward. I want you to keep the chest up, drive the butt back, really sit into it. Just like the squats, you might start a little higher at first, and then try to drive it down. Knee still stays over the foot, okay? Make sure it tracks right over top of it. Arms don't really matter as long as they're not on your legs. Good, stand it up, and we're going to do butt kickers. So with this one, seemingly very, very simple, but you want that knee to stay straight down and bring the heel all the way up to your butt. So you shouldn't bird leg it, bringing the knee up to the front. Knee should stay down, heel snaps hard towards the butt. And next one, straight leg swings. One arm goes out, opposite leg swings up. Keep that leg as straight as you can. Stay on one side and try not to lean back. So control it. Chest stays up tall. Swing that leg up. Good. Switch it to your other side. Same thing. Don't lean back. All right, next one, I'm going to kneel just so you guys can see me, and I have a low ceiling. You guys can stand up. Really doesn't matter. You're going to do your scarecrow arms. So elbows are up. You're going to rotate the shoulders. Keep those elbows up. Keeping the elbows up really allows us to get into that rotator cuff for this exercise. If you drop the arms down and just kind of do this, all you're really doing is flicking your wrists, and you're not really doing much. So keep the elbows up high. Rotate those shoulders. And now we're going to open up the shoulders even a little more, going into our I's and T's. So straight up, straight out. And on this one, again, it's real easy to kind of arch back and feel like you're getting more range of motion, but you want to stay upright as you take those arms up and out. And when you go out to the side, they should be up almost parallel to the floor. Good. All right, next one. I want you to step backwards into a lunge. Keep that back knee just off the ground. From here, try to stabilize. Rotate as far as you can over that front leg. Come back. Stand up. Switch sides. Now, if you have the mobility to do this, when you step back, you're going to put the opposite hand on the ground. If you don't, you're going to continue what we were just doing. If you have the mobility, reach up, around, come back down, stand it up. Your head should look up at that top hand and actually back over that shoulder. Good, and stand it up. Last one, just to get that heart rate up and that blood pumping good, we're going to do jumping jacks. So take the hands up overhead and knock them out. Hi, Andrew. All right, very good. All right, so what we're going to do first, we're going to get into those upper body movement patterns. So we're going to get into our push and our pull. And we've got a couple different pushes and pulls. We're going to focus on two. We're going to do a straightforward push, thinking like a bench press or a push-up, and we're going to do an overhead press. Same thing with the pull. We're going to work on an overhead pull down and a pull back. So we're going to start with the push first, and we're going to start with push-ups. So push-ups are kind of simple for a lot of people, the idea of them at least, but a lot of people aren't thinking about what they're doing when they're doing push-ups. So we see a lot of really sloppy push-ups where the hips come down this way, or a lot of people that never progress from their knees because they're not really sure which muscle groups they should be incorporating and how to feel the exercise and how to turn everything on. So what I want you guys to do is get up on your toes, get in push-up position, hands below the shoulders. So make sure your arms are straight down, and I want you to focus on setting those shoulder blades. So don't be hunched and rounded in your back. Don't let the low back flatten down. I want you to think about getting into a tall plank position. So hands are straight under you. You're going to tuck the tailbone, try to separate the shoulder blades, and then from there, when you separate those shoulder blades, you should kind of feel the hands screw into the floor. So if you had a bar in your hands, you'd be trying to snap it in the middle by twisting your thumbs in and up. Okay? So as soon as you do that, you're going to feel those shoulder blades separate. Then you can drop down for that push-up and press back up. And go ahead and take a knee. And what I want you to focus on, we're going to get in this position and do several of these, but I want you to focus on a push-up being a moving plank. I don't care if this cuts your push-up number in half. It should make it harder. I want you to make this the hardest but best looking push-up that you've ever done. So you're going to brace your core, tuck your tailbone, screw those hands into the floor, and then your elbows should come back almost at a 45-degree angle. So they don't need to be tucked tight like a tricep push-up, but you definitely don't want them out super wide because it puts extra stress on the shoulders. So from here, go up on the toes, tuck the tailbone, screw the hands into the floor, make sure your quads are tight, abs are tight, then come down, back up, and you should feel rock solid. Your core should feel like it moves all as one unit. Go ahead and practice a few of them and try to get down to at least 90 degrees and come back up. So no shallow push-ups. If you need to drop to your knees, what you're going to do is the same exact thing, but I want you to tuck your tailbone, but still be down, have your weight forward even though you're down on your knees. If you're back here for your push-ups, there's no weight over the arms and chest. It's all back here in your hips. So keep the hips forward, drop down, press up, trying to focus on the same things. Ideally, instead of dropping to your knees, you're going to elevate, which is why we do elevated push-ups off a bench, off a bar, off the wall, because you're able to maintain that same form by keeping the toe position instead of being down on your knees. But when you guys do this, always think of push-ups as being a moving plank, okay? Same thing with bench press. When you get in that bench press position, yes, you're on your back instead, but you want to make sure that those feet are planted. Think about trying to do a plank without having your feet engaged or having your legs tight or something like that. You couldn't do it. Same thing with a bench press. If you don't have your feet engaged in the floor, pressing into the floor, you've got no bracing to push off of. So you need to have those feet planted on the floor, abs braced, and then press up from there. Same thing applies if you're using a barbell, where I was talking about screwing the hands into the floor. You're going to try to snap that barbell, and you'll feel a lot more engaged. So remember, everything's connected. It's about building that one big base. Okay? So I'm going to transition to an overhead press for you now. And what I want you to do here, we're not even going to use any weight. You can be standing or kneeling. You're going to be up on your knees, hips forward, and you're going to be nice and tall. From here, first thing again, tighten that butt up, tighten the abs up. Without that, you don't have that core, that foundation to push off of. Right now, my knees are rooted, planted in the ground. If you're standing, it's your feet that are going to be planted in the ground. You're actually going to be a little stronger if you're standing because you're able to grip with your feet and your toes a little bit. But from here, what I want you to do is maintain a neutral grip. So just like make a fist, thumb straight back, and you're going to press, and I want you to reach and feel your bicep come in by your ear and bring it back down. Intentionally squeeze, feel the muscles move, and then actually pull it back down. So don't just let your arm fall. I want you to pull with the lats and then press back up. Full extension should be here. Bicep against the ear, all the way up, not here. A lot of times when people do presses, we see them come to here. I want you to focus on getting full extension, pull back down. So reach, extend, pull back down. And make it a deliberate drive of the elbow, shoulder blade down and back. Press, pull, press, pull. Good, switch to your other side. Reach it up, in tight, pull down, and press. And what you should notice, and what we're going to go into next, is these are the inverse of your pull exercises. And when we press and we do that pull back down, that pull is going to be very similar to your lat pull down. So these exercises complement each other as they work in the opposite way, but you should feel the same everywhere else. So your core, hips, butt, legs, everything else should feel the same. So full extension, really reach it, pull it back down. Over time, if you don't go through a full range of motion, you're actually going to limit your range of motion. You're going to build a smaller and smaller natural range, and you're going to shorten the muscles. That's why you see some of those big bodybuilders that kind of walk around like this, because they do curls like this all day and they can't extend their arms out all the way anymore. So full range of motion is important. And we are going to get into some of these mobility drills here, guys, but I'm going to go through the basics of your push and pull here. On your pull next, what I want you to do, we're going to start in a bent over position, okay? So we're going to get into like a hip hinge, but you can prop yourself with one arm. So keep your back as straight as you can. Bring this arm down towards the floor. From here, I want you to focus on bringing your arm up by your side, but without using your arm. So obviously you're going to have to, but I want you to think about using your back more than your arm. So I want that squeeze to come from in here, in your lats. Drive it up, keep it in tight. Feel that shoulder blade lift, hold it at the top, press it back down. So squeeze, pull up next to you, feel the shoulder blade lift, press back down. Lots of tension. Hold that position, abs tight, legs tight, big squeeze of the lats, and press. So before that elbow moves, that shoulder should lift, the lats should engage. So it should be here, then the elbow starts coming up, and press it back down. So pull, extend, pull, extend. A lot of people are weak in their pulls and in their rows because they try to arm it. This is where we see a lot of people rowing and they're trying to pull from the arm versus engaging the lats. Your lats are a huge muscle that you can use for your pulling exercises. So once you get in the habit of shoulder blade lifts and then the elbow starts coming up. Okay, try the other side. Same thing. So squeeze the lats, lift that shoulder blade, and it should feel good when you feel that shoulder blade lift up, especially if yours is particularly like pasted to your back. It should feel like you get a little bit of a release, and it should feel good to get it up off of there and get it moving. Really, when you open a door, the way you should open a door is that. You should be rowing from the back, but we get lazy and we just kind of pull it with our arm, rotate with our body. But the way our human bodies are designed to move and to pull is to be pulling from the back first and then letting the arm kind of follow along. Okay, so that's your normal frontal row. We can do that. That row would be the same whether we're doing bent over, we're doing barbell, if you're laying on your chest, if you're down, in a quadruped position or kneeling on a bench, it's going to be that same style row. It's going to be a little different when we get into the overhead. So for the overhead, if you have your towel or a band or a PVC, you can grab those things now. And what I'm going to show you, we'll take the towel first. You're going to hold it out nice and wide up overhead. And I'm going to adjust my angle here for you a little bit. All right. So you're going to hold it up here overhead, and I want you to slowly pull the towel apart like you're trying to rip it in the middle, keeping your hands as wide as you can and driving those shoulder blades down, like you're trying to pinch the elbows together and put the shoulder blades in your back pocket. So nice and slow. I want you to drive it down, back behind the head, and back up. Full extension back up at the top again, all the way up overhead, lock it out. Don't stop here. Reach, then pull down. Feel the difference between that end range when you reach it and when you don't. Good, now let's do a few to the front. Same thing, don't lean back. You can tilt the head back just slightly and pull down in front and back up. It should feel just a little bit different because we changed the angle of the pull. It's probably going to bring it up a little bit higher. And as you're doing this, if you've got lots of outward tension on it, you should actually feel yourself starting to work on this too. Should be getting a little shaky, a little warm, and feel the fatigue a little bit. Good, go ahead and release it. Okay, so that's your basic upper body push and pulls. The reason we're going over that is most of us have been doing this for a while, so it's real easy to just kind of throw the weights around, go through the range of motion, do really crappy push-ups. But it makes a big difference to do them the right way. And a lot of times mentally it's hard for us to do that because our numbers go down when we do them the right way. But don't focus on that. Don't worry about the number of reps or the amount of weight that you're moving. Worry about the quality of the movement and the range of motion. It's a lot more important. It's a lot safer. It's going to keep you healthier. So I'm going to show you some upper body mobility things to work on now. And if some of these kind of pop out at you like, holy crap, I can't do that at all, these are good ones to add to your routine both before and after a workout. But I like to put them in before a workout because then you're loosening it up so you can actually get a better quality workout as you go. So the shoulders are going to be a big part of this with the upper body. That's the biggest area that we see issues with. So the first thing I'm going to show you, you're going to need just a little bit of wall space. Can be anything. Really doesn't matter what your wall is like. I'll show you how we're going to do these. And if you have to move to a different area and I can't see you, that's okay. No worries. The first thing we're going to do is just wall presses. So you're going to take your arms and just bring them right out in front of you, forearms flat against the wall. You're going to tuck your tailbone and you're going to press hard into the wall. As hard as you can for 10 seconds, but make sure you tuck the tailbone. Don't lean into it. Tuck, brace the abs so you're like almost in a plank position. All right, go ahead, press hard, 10 seconds. Try to move that wall and don't forget to breathe. Good, relax, slide your hands up. Same thing, tuck, press, try to knock it over, go. Relax. Walk in, take your hands as high as you can go, and we're going to do it one more time. Press. Good, and relax it. So these are just called wall presses. All it is it's a big contraction, a powerful contraction and release. Contract, release. And the reason being, when you do that with any type of muscle, you get more range of motion out of it. If you've ever done partner stretches where someone holds you at end range for a little bit, really, really tight, then lets go and then brings you back up again, you can find a little bit more range of motion. Same thing with an exercise like this. Okay, next thing we're going to do, we're going to go back to the wall and you're going to tuck your tailbone, keep your back nice and flat. Then from here, we're going to take one arm, reach it up, and try to bring it back to the wall next to your head. The key here, though, is don't bring it out to the side and don't just bring it up with a bent elbow. Reach it to that full range of motion we were talking about on that overhead press. Okay, so yes, try to get your back flat. If your back arches, stop right there and go back down. You may not hit the wall. Go as far as you can with your low back in contact with the wall. And it's going to help if you exhale on the way up and forcefully. So if you breathe out in through the nose, out through the mouth, and push that arm up towards the wall. Good. Switch over to the other side. Keep it in tight to your head. Back flat. Exhale. All right, good. Come on out away from the wall. Now you're going to take either your PVC, your broomstick, your band, or your towel. We're going to do some pass-throughs. So the pass-throughs are going to be a little bit more aggressive. So the first one, those wall presses, are a very static hold, contract, release. Then we get into these reaches with some breathing. Now we're going to get into some more dynamic movement with the pass-throughs. So you can use whatever you got there. I'm going to take a light band. I like the little bit of tension. Take it up through and back down. But just like we were talking with the other stuff, reach it. So go up overhead. Don't just take the arms behind you this way and let the elbows bend. Keep the arms out as straight as you can. Lift the shoulder blades. Feel the difference. If you just take it nice and easy up overhead, you feel the movement out here in the shoulder joint, but you don't feel anything in the shoulder blade. When you start to really lift and pull down and back, you can really feel the shoulder blades move with this as well. So a lot of this is intentionality. And to show you from the side too, stay up tall, take it up and back. Try not to lean it back around. Try to stand up tall as you take it up and through. Good. I'm going to show you another one now that really helps. So your shoulder blades sit on your back like this, okay? So they sit here and they move in this type of pattern. So they kind of swing out and up. So in order to mimic that pattern and really loosen that up, you're going to take one hand on top of your broomstick, the other hand down nice and low. This one is just open on top. This is the arm, the one that's on the bottom, doing the work. And you're trying to follow that natural range of motion up to the side and back down. So let that arm that's on top just relax. Don't let it do any of the work at all. Use the bottom arm to push it out and up and let it track right back down. And then you'll switch over to your other side and the same thing. And if you guys notice differences in one side to the other, kind of make note of that. It could be a couple of things. One, a lot of people have a dominant side, and a lot of times the dominant side is tighter because it gets overused. Not always, but spend a little bit more time on the side that needs more work. It's not like exercise where doing a little bit more on one side is going to be detrimental. And if there's a big glaring discrepancy, definitely make sure to let us know. We can help you with it. All right, so next one. We're going to lay down on our side for this next one. And this one is going to be called the sleeper stretch. So what I want you to do is stack your hips, stack your feet. So almost like you're getting ready to do a side plank, but lay on the ground. But I don't want you rolled back. I want you to stay on your side. Then from here, put that arm straight out in front of you. Okay, so I want you to make a 90-degree bend at your armpit. So from your body out to your arm, there should be a 90-degree angle. Then I want you to make another 90-degree angle by bringing the hand up in the air. So it should be 90 at the elbow, then 90 at your armpit. Then what I want you to do is exhale and gently press down on that arm with your top arm. Exhaling, trying to bring it down towards the floor. And just go to kind of your end range of motion. Make sure the elbow is out straight out from the shoulder, and then take a few big deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. And you can see right there, I just gained about 2 more inches with that breath. Do it again. Boom. Try to get it all the way down to the floor if you can. Don't ever push it to where it's extremely painful. You want it to be discomfort, but not pain. Good. Bring it all the way back up. Release it for a second and go down again. Should be much looser this time. Should be able to get a little bit further right away. Good. Next, roll it over. Other side. And don't be afraid to use your breathing either. Sometimes people are like, I don't want to be that guy that, does all that loud breathing. It makes a difference. So don't worry about it. If you're worried about it in this setting, just mute your thing. Nobody will hear you. But take your elbows straight out. Remember, shoulders are stacked, hips are stacked, everything stays up. Press that arm down and breathe. Big belly breath. Exhale out through the mouth. Good, bring it back up. And take it down again. And really focus too on where your wrist is. Because it's one thing if you bring the hand to the ground, but if you can get that wrist all the way down, you'll know you're truly flat and getting that max range of motion. Good, bring it back up. All right, and one more that I'm going to show you guys.
Where is that stretching, Josh? So I feel that,
down,
here, my shoulder.
Yeah, down the side of your arm, right? Like the top part of your arm?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's 2 things. You're getting into the rotator cuff as well as the deltoids. So you've got the medial part of your deltoids that attach right down here. But your rotator cuff that's deep inside is getting worked really hard, and almost all referred pain from your rotator cuff presents down that spot in your arm. So when you're getting that tightness and you're feeling that, it's a combination of the 2. It's the deltoids as well as the rotator cuff that sits under there. Like even when I had my torn rotator cuff, all my pain was down here, even though the tear is up inside of here.
Yeah, that was different. I mean, I didn't have a lot of range of motion in that.
Yeah. So that's a good one to work on then. A lot of people don't. I'm able to get my hand all the way down to the floor because I've done it a lot through physical therapy and things. But use the breathing and don't overdo that one. It's really easy to press and get painful into that. So go nice and easy. Don't overstretch that one. But it's probably a good one to do, Diane.
Yeah.
So the prayer stretch, I'm going to try to take a little different angle and see if I can use this side of my couch over here. I like to use something fairly high for the prayer stretch, so you can see how high this is versus the lower part, because if you get into something too low, it almost encourages you to drop your back. So I want something fairly high. If you don't have anything right now, you can just watch along. If you have a counter, a table, a high chair, or something like that, you can use it. But with the prayer stretch, most of you guys know that the prayer stretch starts in this position here, and you're breathing and dropping down. However, I like to separate the hands. So you would think together for the prayer stretch, but what happens when you bring the hands together is you tend to kind of hunch the back. As soon as you pull the hands apart, you separate the shoulder blades and put them into their proper placement, which is why we tell you in a plank to separate your hands, put them forward like a number 11 versus together so that you're not hunched, you're in proper position. So you can do that in a couple of ways. If you have a small foam roller, paper towel roll, something like that. Or you can even take your broomstick and just put your hands about shoulder width apart. And then just to kind of show you from the side angle, you would be up here like this. Let me move the camera up a little bit for us. There we go. And when you come down into your prayer stretch, you actually want to arch the back like a cat. You don't want to drop it down this way. Okay, so try to arch the back up. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth, and drop down as far as you can. This will help keep the shoulder blades set. And I'll show you a little trick that you can do with that broomstick then as well. So what I want you to do is try to take 3 or 4 big deep breaths, arch the back up, in through the nose, out through the mouth, and every breath you should try to sink deeper and deeper. Don't come up out of it, just in through the nose, out through the mouth. And I want you to bring it up, and we're going to go back into it again. So inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth, keep the back rounded up. If you drop the back the other way, you should feel that you lose some of that tension. So try to keep the back rounded. Inhale through the mouth, exhale hard. And that should almost be a similar feeling to the sleeper stretch. It just kind of moves it up to the front a little bit more. And then you should feel the shoulder blades as well. One other thing you guys can do too, if you tend to be tight through your triceps or through the shoulders, is when you get down into that bottom position, say you've taken your 3 deep breaths, you can actually go into a tricep extension and press back up. So you're going to bring it back down behind your head and press up. And you'll feel that contraction and release to stretch out just a little bit more as well. All right, so next thing I want to do, where I think most people have more issues than the upper body, is in that lower body. So before we even get into that hinge and squat pattern, I want you guys to all practice the 90-90 breathing drill, because I think it's one of the best ways to set your core, your diaphragm, your hips, your glutes in proper position before we even get into it. So you're going to need your wall again. If you don't have a wall, you can actually use a bench. Like Adam, I saw you got your exercise bench there. You can place your heels down on top of the bench, or you can put your heels against the wall. It's going to work either way. So what I want you guys to do is come in nice and close to the wall. And it's called a 90-90 because you've got a 90-degree bend here and a 90-degree bend here at the knees. Then from here, you're going to try to slide your left heel down towards the floor and right foot up. Don't actually let them move, but I want you to put downward pressure into the left, upward pressure into the right, and lift your butt up off the ground. If you're doing that, applying that pressure, as soon as you come up, you should feel the abs really brace in that position. Okay? Then what I want you to do is inhale through the nose, but draw it all the way into your belly. I want your lower abs, your belly button to move. Set your hands right across your lower belly so you can feel it. And then exhale hard. I want to hear it out through pursed lips, nice and tight. Go. And I want you to exhale every bit of air to where you feel like you got nothing left. And then take that big deep breath in. Belly breath, exhale. All right, now I want you to reach that right arm up overhead. Left arm down on the floor. Do it again. Downward pressure into the left, upward into the right foot. One more time. Good. Release it and come on back up. And if you guys do that intentionally, and you really put pressure into those legs and you're holding that position, you should actually feel that as ab work. So you should be able to feel the breaths, feel the hold from doing that. And what we're doing there is most people naturally tend to sit back in their right hip. So whether you kind of just stand this way, you sit this way, ladies that have had kids have a tendency, hold your kids on your hip. A lot of times we don't realize it. It's naturally into that right hip. And part of the reason for that is the way your diaphragm sits. plus your internal organs, you're actually loaded more to that side, and it makes it natural to sit into the right hip. There are a few people that happen to sit into their left hip for whatever reason, same as some of us are left-handed. There are some exceptions, but most people tend to find that because of our natural body design, that right hip tends to sit back. So this is a good way. That's why we pull that left hip down and push that right side up in the foot. We're actually trying to realign the hips, not quite like a chiropractic adjustment, but we're trying to get you back in proper alignment, and the breathing really helps release those tight muscles that are holding you into that position and put you back there. So I like to throw that one in for anybody that's got hip, low back issues before we get into lower body work, because if you're going to go into a hip hinge or something like that, you want to do it evenly. Okay? So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to talk about that squat pattern. So squats can be done in a whole bunch of different ways. So we can do body weight squats, we can do back loaded squats, we can do front loaded, we can do goblets, we can do all that kind of stuff, right? So the very first thing we're going to focus on, just like we did in the warm-up, is that body weight squat position. So I'm going to turn sideways because I want you guys to see kind of what I'm talking about here. A lot of times when people do body weight squats, this is what we see. Okay? So this is kind of a bend forward along with a deadlift or hip hinge along with a squat. Okay? Your squat should be more here. Okay? The difference being, if I was going to sit on a chair, sit on the toilet, I'm going to come back and sit in this position here. I'm not going to be here because now my butt's actually up off of it. So you want to sit down, try to get your butt down before your legs come down, if that makes sense. So what I want you to do is sit back on the heels, keep the chest up. You don't have to arch the back, and you can come forward a little bit. You'll see I have an angle at my back. I'm not perfectly straight up. That's the other thing you don't need to do, is stay perfectly straight up. But keep the chest up. Don't dive forward into your squats, because if you look, it's actually a very shallow squat when I do that. So I want you to sit back on your heels, come back up, okay? Really root those feet, weight in the heels. I like the hands out in front for a body weight squat because it gives me a little bit of a counterbalance, okay? So chest stays up, knees track over the feet, and you can play with the width of your squat. There's not really a right or wrong. The more narrow you are, the deeper you have to get to parallel, or the more range of motion it requires, but it's where you're most comfortable. Everybody's hips are a little bit different in width and shape, so you got to find your comfort spot. Your feet are also naturally going to be turned out a few degrees, maybe about 10, 15 degrees, and then you're going to sit down, should stay perfectly over top. Don't let those knees come back in, okay? If you're going to do it with a bar, so you can grab your broomstick here, you're going to intentionally think about how you're holding the bar. So you're not just kind of resting your hands on it. You're going to pull the shoulder blades back, and you're going to pull the elbows under the bar. A lot of times people's elbows are back, and guess what that does right away? It rounds my upper back, and it makes me squat like this. And it's really heavy on the low back, and I'm not getting proper depth. As soon as I bring those elbows under the bar, you can see the way it brings my chest up and doesn't let me dive forward nearly as much. So grab your bar, elbows forward underneath the bar, squat down. Nothing else changes from those body weight squats. And really focus on getting nice and deep into it. Good. If you were going front loaded, again, very little changes. It will keep you upright a little bit more because now the weight is up front. There's not going to be enough weight on your broomstick to properly get your elbows up. But if you can't get the elbows straight up out in front of you for the squat, that's a shoulder mobility issue, and you're not going to be able to front squat properly. That's where we load people cross-armed or goblet, so that you don't have to worry about getting those elbows up so high. So if you're unable to get into that proper front squat position up here, that's actually an upper body shoulder mobility issue. That's where that sleeper stretch and prayer stretch are going to come in handy for you to kind of loosen that up. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about then too is that hip hinge. So your hip hinge, to me, This is where I see people struggle the most. It's the least natural, or the one at least that people haven't done for the longest period of time if they haven't been active. This is your deadlift, your kettlebell swing, your hip bridges, things like that. And a lot of you have, all of you have done these, but there is a right way and a wrong way. So we're really going to break this one down. And the first way I like to do that is to take your pole and make 3 points of contact. So tailbone, back of the shoulders, and back of the head. Then from here, and try to show you a little bit so you can see my knees. So from here, what you're trying to do is just a slight bend, unlock those knees, but the first movement should be your butt traveling back. Many times people's first movement is bending the knees. So unlock the knees, but then push the butt back. Okay, weight is in the heels, but toes are still on the ground. Now bring that chest as low as you can. If you feel that pole come up off your tailbone, your head, you know you're not in proper alignment. So keep 3 points of contact, push the butt back, don't bend those knees, get as far down as you can, feel that stretch in the hamstrings. Back, 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 drive the butt back and come up. So less squat, more hinge, keep those points of contact. This is going to help you maintain a neutral spine when you get into your heavy deadlifts and things like that. All right, another way that we're going to work on this, same exact range of motion, but we're going to use a wall. So what you're going to do now is I want you to just start probably about 12 inches out away from the wall. I want you to look straight ahead. I want the knees slightly bent, again, just unlocked. And what you're trying to do is touch the wall with your butt without bending the knees anymore. So reach out, butt tap the wall. Push back and deliberately try to reach with your butt and immediately feel the difference. I can do this and bend forward and I feel nothing. But if I reach with my butt, almost try to lift it up and back, you can feel a big difference in that posterior chain. Okay, if that's not too bad, step it out, little half step. Really reach, same thing, and try not to fall back against the wall. If you do, it's there to catch you. That's part of the training with this. But I want you to try to reach back, tap, come back up. And when you come back up, pay attention to how you're coming up. It's not this. You're not bringing the chest up first because now you're using the low back. When you come up, it's the same way you went down. Squeeze the butt, drive the hips forward. So it's back, squeeze forward. So when we do kettlebell swings and things like that, it's an explosive variation of this hip hinge. It's the exact same muscles, same movement. And you can challenge yourself by getting further and further out away from the wall, but feel the difference when you lift up and back, really trying to drive the hips back first. All right, next one. 3 point, 2 straight leg raise. Glutes. Okay. So what I want to do is show you guys a few mobility things to go with the lower body. So there's several things that can cause issues here. When we're talking about squats, a lot of times are an ankle mobility issue. Sometimes it is a shoulder mobility issue when we're talking weighted squats. But we're going to address the ankles first. We're going to talk about hips and hip flexors. The T-spine is another one. If you guys don't have good T-spine mobility, sometimes it's hard to get in proper position. When we're talking about the hinges, obviously the hips are an issue, as well as the glutes and the low back. And a lot of times when people have low back issues, it comes from the glutes. And sometimes even when people are talking about tight hamstrings, it may not be the hamstrings. It could come from the calves, the glutes. It's all connected. That whole posterior chain from the low back all the way down to the lower part of your leg are all connected together. So we're going to address a few different things at once. So again, we're going to go over towards the wall. We're going to start with ankle mobility. So I want you to take your broomstick, come over to the wall. And what I want you to do here is start with your toe right up against the wall. Put your pole right on the outside of your knee because I don't want your knee to be able to push outward, okay? So put your pole right down next to it. And then from here, I want you to press forward and reach the knee towards the wall and come back. Try to stay upright. Try not to arch the back into it. Press forward, come back. Use the exhale to get the range of motion. And if you do a few and you're able to do that no problem, back up a few inches. Try to do the same thing and come back. I'd like to see everybody be able to go at least 6 inches away from the wall and press forward. You should be able to get your knee further forward over your toe. Believe it or not, your knees do have to travel past your toes in a proper squat. At the bottom of your squat, they will pass your toes. I know old rules where you should never have your knees go over your toes in a squat. What they really mean is you don't want the weight in your knees. You don't want the weight in your toes pushing forward. But if you're sitting back in your heels and you get deep enough, your knees have to pass your toes because of the biomechanics. So you want to make sure that you've got that range of motion and that you're not cheating. Keep that heel planted down on the ground, okay? Take it back as far as you can. And if you don't have the range of motion to get that 6 inches, this is definitely going to be a problem area for your squats. All right, switch up. Go to the other side. Same thing. Start it in nice and close. Exhale, press to the wall. And see if there's any discrepancy between one side and the other. Heel stays down on the ground. Good. All right, go ahead and bring it back around, and you can just go back to your open space now. Yeah, hopefully some of these things will highlight issues you didn't know you had. And I mean that very seriously, because sometimes it's these little underlying things that like you don't realize could unlock potential in your movement, whether it's a form cue or some of these mobility exercises. So next thing we're going to do is going to be a hip mobility exercise. You're going to put one leg out, cross the other leg up and over, and then you're going to bring this elbow around the knee, and I want you to press the knee, not real hard, just a little bit of tension, and then I want you to keep the chest up and try to rotate the shoulders. And you should feel that come down through the low back into this hip here on the leg that's crossed over. So don't just push into the knee. You've got to have that proper rotation to feel that as well. And if you're able to keep rotating, the longer you hold it, that's great. That is what should happen. The more you do it, the longer you hold it, the more it kind of loosens up and frees up as we send that signal to the brain to release it. Good. Switch over, other side. And we're doing short holds here today for the interest of time, but that 20 seconds is kind of a minimum. So if you guys have issues with these, if you're tight in these areas, don't be afraid to hold it for 1 to 2 minutes to try to really open it up. Good, go ahead and release it. Now I want you to take a chair, a bench, a couch, whatever you got, and we're going to do 2 things from there. So we're going to work on those hips again. This time you're going to be seated. You're going to cross the leg over, and I want you to press that knee down as hard as you can without using your hands. So I want you to press the knee down all by itself first. Then I want you to just apply very gentle pressure with the arm on the same side. Turn and reach behind you. And same thing, get that big rotation of the shoulders. Feel that stretch through the outside of the hip, maybe into the IT band there. Good, rotate it back around. Let's switch to the other side. Cross it over, press down naturally without hands first, then add a little pressure if you need it. Turn back around. And man, that side's tighter for me. Good, rotate it back to center. And I want you to come stand up, put one foot up on your seat there, and I want you to drop that knee down and in as close to it as you can get. So my knee is up against my couch with my foot up on top. My other leg is going to go as far out in front of me as I can take it, and go gently on this one because this one's going to be a big pull for a lot of you. Once you get in that position, bring the chest up and push the hips forward. Remember, nice and easy into it. And you should feel a big stretch in the quads and the hip flexors. And we're going to sit here for 20 seconds. And reach back behind you. Arm on the side of the leg that's on the couch comes up and overhead. The other arm reaches behind you. And really feel that stretch. Bring it up through that back leg. Breathe. This is a difficult one for me to hold at first because it's so tight. But after a little bit of time, it starts to relax and loosen up. And it gets more comfortable. Good, rotate back around, slowly bring it back down, come up, we're going to switch sides. Whew. If you guys have a lot of knee pain, this can actually be a really great mobility exercise to include because a lot of times knee pain can come from your quads. So same thing, walk that foot out, chest up, hips forward. We're not going to rotate yet. All right, reach up, turn. Woo, there it is. And slowly bring it back around and back up. And that one alone should feel like once you come up out of it, even though it's a little painful, you should feel a little freed up from it. And that's going to hopefully allow us to go into this next one, which is really going to help with our hips, our squat, as well as the T-spine. So a lot of you guys have done that T-spine rotation where we're down on all fours and we bring that elbow up. This is going to be a similar type exercise for the T-spine, but it's going to allow us to work on our squat pattern as well. So now that we've done some work to loosen up the legs, what I want you to do is go into what I call a toddler squat, nice and low. Okay, so get as low as you can, back on the heels, knees directly over the feet, and I want you to bring one elbow inside your knee. Then that hand can touch the floor, and you're going to turn and reach up. And try to get that arm straight up towards the ceiling. Inhale through your nose. Exhale hard. And you can see the couple inches I just gained right there. Come back into center. Let's flip sides. And you'll probably feel this stretch through your groin at the same time because of the placement of that other arm. And bring it back into center. sit in that low toddler squat position. And if some of those exercises just worked, hopefully you're able to comfortably kind of sit back in this position really, really deep without feeling too much tightness. If you're not able to kind of hold this position here, and my butt is off the ground here, by the way, then these lower body exercises are good to work on until you can get into this low squat, this toddler squat position. Okay, so that's kind of a little bit of a progression of some of the basic movement patterns. I'll just real quick talk to you about the crawl. We're not going to get into it deep, but just to kind of show you. But I wanted to give you guys some of those key movements. I think the ankle mobility drill, the 90-90 breathing, the T-spine rotation, things like that are really big ones to work on. When you guys work on your hip hinges too, don't just think about deadlifts when you're standing. A lot of people do their basic hip bridges wrong to where they just kind of throw it up or go through the motions. It is the exact opposite of a hinge. So you're already starting in the hinged position. So I really want you to focus on that squeeze coming forward. So if you think about that pop on the kettlebell swing, that's what your hip bridges should be. So start focusing on tucking the tailbone, squeezing tight. But like we talked about, bracing the core. What's that? Like we talked about, bracing the core for everything, and that being the foundation for your push-ups, for your hinges, your squats, everything like that. Same thing's going to go for your crawl. So your crawl really should start almost in the same position as a push-up as far as your upper body is concerned. You're trying to plank to the best of your ability with bent knees, which is what makes it so challenging. So your knees come just off the ground. That 90-90 that we've talked about several times, hips and knees, comes into play again. And then when you step, it should be that natural opposite arm and leg with almost no vertical oscillation. So if you watch me crawl, there's really no up and down to my crawl. It's straight forward and back. A lot of times you see this with people where they're rocking the hips and they're swinging the knee out to the side, and a lot of it is mobility from the hips. So if you're not able to crawl, keeping that flat back and no vertical oscillation, it's probably an issue with your hips that's preventing that. So you're swinging the knee out to the side, or you're having to stay up too high to where you're rocking back and forth. So really work on squat depth, opening up those hip flexors, the glutes, and the outside of the hips. All right, do you guys have any questions on any of that? I know this is very different from what we normally do, but I think it's very important, hey buddy, to get back to the basics and really work on function and proper movement. No? Okay, cool. Hopefully it was helpful. Again, like I said, not really a workout, but I want you guys to be able to take something from it. Really think that stuff through as you're doing your next couple workouts. If you're doing an overhead press, remember, don't stop here. Lock it, reach it, and really feel the shoulder blades move. Same thing on your pulls. When you're doing a pull down this way, remember, shoulder blade comes up first before that elbow starts to pull. And then with your presses, really crank into it and make sure that the hips are controlling the movement on those hinges. If you guys need any help with any of those mobility exercises, please don't hesitate to hit me up. Cool. Thank you, guys.
Nice. I learned a lot.
Good.
I did learn a lot. I found some spots.
I talked a lot, so I was hoping he got something out of it.
Found some spots.
Good. I guess that's good. I mean,
Yeah, it is good.
it's good to know that they're there so you can work on them.
Yeah.
So,
All right. See you guys.
good deal. Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Bye, man.